you're a moss group like me. So we'll move on because I'm glazing over already. Oh my goodness. So all of these different structures help you in the identification of the moss, where these gamete structures are, helps you, and then where the spore phytes are produced, that helps you identify, separate into groups when you're doing your identification process. So, of course, there's always an exception, right? So there is one really cool moss called Buxbaumia. There's 3 different species. We have all 3 of those species around here. And it looks like this. Where's the gametophyte? There's no leafy green stuff. So this one totally skips the whole gametophyte thing. There's a protolemma mat. I think the stuff out on the surface is actually algae. That's not the protonemma. The protonemma usually grows underneath the surface. And then it just pops these capsules out. So this is Buxbaumia. It's also called bug on a stick. So, spore dispersal. That's how you get your stuff out there, right? That's how you make new plants of your own. There's, so these capsules, there's different strategies on how to get rid of your spores. Kind of the more primitive method is you just break open and let them fall out. So this is Andrea rupestris. It has these 4 slits in the capsule and they just fall out. Kind of the next more advanced sort of stage is you have some slits in the capsule and it's more like a salt shaker. So hydration and wind action kind of moves the capsule around and it sprinkles its spores out. You get a little more sophisticated and you have teeth. These are called peristome teeth, and these are really susceptible to different levels of humidity. So even if you take some certain capsules and you blow on them, you can watch those peristome teeth move in and out. So it's using the humidity. They'll dry out and go inside the capsule, pick up the spores, release them, and shake them off that way. So you have this action of the peristome teeth that are delivering spores outside the capsule. Now, if you're really sophisticated, you get other creatures involved. So this is a group of mosses called Splachnum. They are the dung mosses because they occur on dung, animal dung. Some of them occur on like bones or other remains. Those types of remains tend to be a little stinky. They tend to attract flies. So this moss's strategy is to have sticky spores and this big umbrella shape so flies can land on them, get the little sticky spores on their pads, on their feet, and fly to the next stinky spot, land, and then they deliver the spores. So this is the most sophisticated that a moss will get, but it's pretty cool. So you have spores. Sometimes that whole process of getting those sperm to swim outside in the environment to get to the eggs is a little difficult. So a lot of moss species have asexual reproduction, where they create a little piece of themselves that can be flipped out and start new. So these are called gemmy, these different types of things. So this is a thalloid liverwort called Marcantia polymorpha, very common. And these little cups they're cups for the gemmy. Those little dots inside are the gemmy, and they'll be like a splash cup. So a drop of water will splash in there, and poof, that little thing can go off and make a new plant, just like its mommy and daddy. You can have a structure that actually looks like a little bud of the plant, so those can then fall off and make a new gametophyte, or you can have just these little cellular pieces that come out, and those are gemmy as well. Or you can be even lazier than that, not wanting to go through that whole sexual process. This is Dicranum torquum, and you can just break off. So you can see the tips of these leaves, they're all kind of blunt at the end. It's where the tips have fallen off, and each one of those little pieces then can become another plant. So we have this one around here. If you see a log that has little dark green tufts of moss on it that are spiky like this. If you lick your finger and rub it on there, you look at your finger, you have all these little moss tips on there, and those can each become a new plant.
Do you think we can get the house lights down a little bit to see the detail better?
Almost ready.
Oh, she's taking pictures, so I think when she's done with...
Hard to see the show though. It's blind, that's much fun. Thank you.
Okay, so where do mosses grow? So we have these spores, we have these fragments, where do they get to? This is a species of moss, Pseudotyphetrum, that occurs on all 7 continents. So that's pretty cool, that it's kind of ubiquitous, it can be everywhere. We have this here, it grows along our streams, and in wet places, ponds and stuff like that, usually on some sort of decaying wood. But it occurs in Antarctica. You know that there's 130 species of mosses in Antarctica? 2 vascular plants, 130 mosses. So there are also some mosses that have more of a restricted distribution. So this is Brachythecium hylotapetum. We have it here in our moist forest. It grows on the forest floor. It's really glossy and beautiful. This is kind of a substitute picture. I couldn't find a picture of it, but this is a related species down here. But you can see that the distribution is kind of restricted here to the western North America. I think this might be an abnormal one. I don't think that's probably what it is. But so you can have more restricted. So bryophytes are generally more widely dispersed than vascular plants. There are few cases of endemics. Like in a vascular plant, we have species in Washington that only occur on like 5 peaks in the Olympic Mountains. That's the species, that's the only place it's found. Global warming, it doesn't look good for that thing. We don't have that sort of restriction on mosses, and it's probably because these spores and these propagules are so small, they can get out. Studies have shown, there have been lots of things, that most of the spores and propagules stay within just meters of the parent plants. But also that long-range dispersal is possible. So when I was in school, my professor told me this study, I couldn't find it. Again, maybe he was making it up, but it's a cool story about this person who flew up in an airplane 30,000 feet, exposed sticky tape on the wings, covered it back up, came back down, and then looked at that sticky tape and found moss spores at 30,000 feet in our atmosphere. So in some cases, for some species, things are getting airborne. We also have the case in point that we have islands all over the world, and they all have moss on them. How did it get there? Something had to transport it there, most likely the wind. And so because we have colonization of these new islands with mosses, we can say that there is some type of long-range dispersal. And more locally, Schistostega pineta is a rare species in the state of Washington. It occurs on root wads. It occurs on really big root wads in moist habitats. So I saw this species for the first time down on Snoqualmie Pass. And because you have this exposure, a tree tips over, exposes the base with mineral soil exposed. Within a year, you get Schistostega growing on it. Now this is an extra cool moss. You see, it's kind of glowing, right? It glows. You go up to a root rod and take a light, and you look for glow, because the protolemo mat will glow back at you when exposed to the light. So because you have this new exposure of root wads, they have to be able to disperse. Those spores have to be able to get there to colonize these new substrates. So that shows us that long-range dispersal is possible.